Ohio political news today. Coming to you live from my basement. Something bit me already. All right, let's see what we got out here. We have the Common Core Diva. I always want to say Diva. It's diva.com. CommonCoreDiva.com. Lynn Taylor. Taylor. And I apologize. I got to get the IT guy, who is Kent, who is not around today, to get some people's names so that we can have names flow under people. And this is the second show without it, and I apologize. And we also have your partner in crime, I think,
Yes.
Ginny Mac.
Yes.
Ginny Mac. That sounds like
a song.
You should be a famous. Yeah, it sounds like a song. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. Tonight, so we're going to be talking data mining information on students and how this. From what I would gather, this should be stopped, and it would be a horrible thing if they are just going into the personal information of kids. Okay, so we'll look at that. A couple other things, so before we really get started. Lynn, you're out in North Carolina, and so I wanted to ask, you weathered that big storm out there in North Carolina. So thank God for that, right? You're
Absolutely. To give you some kind of context, if you're not familiar with North Carolina, we're a long state, okay? And we're broken up into 3 regions. The region that got hit the hardest, of course, is the mountain region. I live in the westernmost Piedmont section, which butts right up to the mountains. So while we got a tiny bit of damage here, nothing in comparison to what the mountains got. But here's the thing, because there was so much water and so much debris, anything that is still out there floating is coming into our water because of the water systems that have been compromised. I live on Lake Norman, which is the largest man-made lake in the state. We got so much storm surge that our sewer system began to fail. And that was the biggest part of the damage that we had. The only thing that has been left over from that, of course, is bacteria that is growing airborne pathogens. So you have to be careful about that. We're not at the boil water stage, but we also know that we're seeing more and more debris from the west coming east towards us. And it is going to be worse and worse as the weeks and months go on. So
really?
This
you expect it to get worse yet, huh?
Yeah, it's not going to be clear anytime soon. The mountains are going to have to be totally, well, not the mountains, but the communities and the people there are going to have to be totally rebuilt and re-energized. And so it's going to take the rest of us to, first of all, pray, support, do all we can. If all we can do is maybe a couple of bucks, that's better than nothing. If all we can do is pray.
The other question we have with all of that too is, the FEMA.
What a goat rope that is! Yeah.
That's a good term. What was it? Goat rope or
goat rope?
A goat rope.
It's a goat rope. Yeah,
this guy here is the goat rope. Yeah, take the goat rope and start smacking him. You know what? Okay, so here's what happened. I was just reading this. It says the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General's report from August reveals that there's $7 billion. Okay, $7 billion. That's an emergency funding that could be used for natural disasters. And Mayorkas doesn't know it's there. All right? He doesn't know it's there. $7 billion. What the hell? How could you not know that? This whole thing with North Carolina, and you're not the only state, but let's see some of the other states that got hit. Maybe you got hit the hardest. I don't know. Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida.
Yeah.
But they're saying they don't have any money, but now they found $7 billion. How could you not know you have $7 billion? It's crazy. That's our government. Here's
the thing that really here's the thing that really chaps my Wheaties as well as everybody else that's in this state, and it is how in the world can you have a government agency come in and tell you, no, you cannot give your private donations and your private goods and things like
what's up
that,
with all that?
aid,
That's so bizarre.
that,
That's so bizarre.
that it only has to be government issued. Well, BS and horse hockey,
get the
no,
hell
it
out
doesn't.
of here. Yeah, right. No.
And then
Enough
to
is
tell the
enough.
citizens
Unbelievable.
that, then to tell the citizens, oh, you could only get $750, which is a
Right.
loan. It's not.
Oh, it's a loan too, huh?
It's a loan. It's a loan.
Tell them. You see, that's okay. I know you guys. This is called Ohio Political News. All right, and
Yes, it is.
we are a big Trump supporter. All right. So in other words, we don't pull any strings, but this is just an example of the inefficiencies with the current administration, and it's just mind-boggling to me. So what are they? Somebody was saying that they're moving so slow because we're starting early voting, so they want to make sure that these people don't have access to vote or some ridiculous thing. I don't know.
I
don't know
have
what
no
it is.
idea how. Look, these people don't even have a home right now or a way to cook. I don't know that they're going to be as concerned with voting, nor should they be. They need to be concerned about where's my family, where's my next meal, where's my shelter,
Well, that's
things like that.
But the point,
Yeah.
but the point, Lynn, what I'm trying to get at is this is the strategy. Somebody
Oh, I
was
see
saying
what
that
you're
the
saying.
Democrats want to use. So they're
Oh,
dragging
I
their
see what you're
feet.
saying.
So because North Carolina is a republic, it's going to go for Trump. Okay, it's going to go for Trump. So they don't care about North Carolina. I mean, it seems this way. As vicious as that is, I mean, this administration that's in there now is crazy. All right.
They did the same thing with Lahaina and East Palestine too. East Palestine in Ohio with the train wreck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We cover that quite a bit, East Palestine. But you're saying the feds really didn't do anything? Is that what you're saying, or are you saying the state?
Well, they knew that the train was carrying gas that was carcinogenic and deadly. I mean, and they waited forever to, they told the people to stay at home. And then they finally said, no, you got to evacuate. And they had to evacuate 20 miles away. I mean, does that tell you anything?
Yeah, right. East Palestine, what a joke that was. But, not only with what the federal government, but our own state government really botched the heck out of that one, too. And we've covered a lot of that. So those cars, those trains, they were carrying like 8 different car train loads were, oh, by the way, if you're in the chat, please chat. We would appreciate it. Let's see here. How are those people going to vote? They should be at some point, this administration showing them who matters. And
it's not them.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not them. It's clearly not them. Yeah. But that was the
It
point.
clearly
That's the
isn't.
other point I was trying to get with all of this is that I've a strategy. This seemed like a cockamamie strategy, but I don't know. What I've been reading, they want to drag their feet because then people are not going to be concerned with voting. They don't care about voting. They're not going to be able to get to voting booths. If this drags on, I don't know if that's the case or not.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll just have to see, Joe, because there are so many untold components to this. I mean, you're talking entire towns that have been wiped out. You're talking infrastructures. You're talking massive loss of life. And then there's going to be disease that sets in. So we're so not done with this. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is there's another Category 5 hurricane belting down Florida right now as we speak, which is just going to compound everything. That just seems absolutely insane. Okay, all right, let's get to this data mining here with the students and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I do want to introduce Jenny Mack. I did mention you, but I also didn't mention that you were from Lima. No, Well, you're not from Lima, but you live close to Lima, Ohio. Where is it you're at?
I'm in Columbus Grove, Ohio.
Columbus Grove. Columbus
Yeah.
Grove, which is 10, 15 miles from Lima, right?
Right.
Somewhere around there. Okay, so let's get into this, ladies. I don't know which one wants to start. I think Jeannie, did you say you wanted to start with this? Let's talk about that data mining, if you don't mind. Let's get right to it. I've got this graph here I'm going to put up as well. What is this graph all about? Oh, hang on one second.
Because I'm not really quite sure.
Oh, you can't see it?
We can get to that later though, Joe. Why don't you let Jenny tell about how she found out about what was going on in Ohio?
All right, go ahead, Jeannie. Yeah.
Well, I'm like Lynn. I got involved in all this stuff, 12 years ago. And I read the Family Educational Privacy, and I can't remember what it is called, FERPA. And we were dumbfounded when we found out what they were doing with the kids. And we knew back then that their data was being collected and sent to the state. Well, for a while, it was just to the state. And then it was to the federal government. Then it was to any federal agency that wanted the information. And now it's going worldwide. It's being, all this data that's being collected on the kids and is probably 15,000 times more than what it was back in 2012 and 2013. And it's being stored internationally. The parents cannot stop it from happening. And the information that's in this data storage area cannot ever be removed or retrieved.
Okay, now is this, I just want to make sure I understand this. Is this laptops that they were given, and then now every time they go on there and use the laptop, that any information, anything they do connected with that laptop, even if they take it somewhere, it monitors where they're going with it and all this information. Is that what you're referring to, these school laptops that are given
Yes.
the public schools, right? Is it just
Right.
public schools?
I think, I'm not sure.
If Ohio is like the rest of the nation, Joe, any device that is issued through your public school system, even if you're not a public school student, this applies to it. But this also applies to the in-school computers. This applies to schools, any computer that is in any sort of business entity or service, like a library, that offers computer use for educational purposes.
Okay, so any kind of computer like that they're using, all the data, any of the websites they go to, so
Yes.
it would be like websites, anything they post on social media, all of that is connected. If it's a physical, laptop itself, and they carry it somewhere, it monitors where they're going. Okay, so why are they doing this, and what are they going to? I know it's an invasion of privacy, without a doubt, which makes it, to me, completely illegal. And even in Ohio, though, we have a Senate Bill 29 we might talk about, which looks like we might
Sure.
be stopping this. But let's just, a lot of states aren't stopping it. So what is the harm that's being done to these kids specifically? Do you want to comment on that?
Jenny, do you want to answer that first, and then I'll go after you?
Well, from my perspective, when we were doing all this digging, they eventually want to have every child on a computer and doing remote learning. And they want to give every child an IEP so that they can have their curriculum will be on the computer. They will do pods, and they will either pass the pod or don't pass the pod. If they don't pass it, then they'll redo it. Kids will be doing work at their own speed. It may take 6 weeks for somebody to learn something. It may take another person only 2 weeks. So the whole thing is that it's going to be, the education systems all over the world are going to be equalized. They're all going to be teaching basically the same thing. And they want this data so that they can, your child won't be able to say, I want to be a plumber. And they say, no, you can be a doctor. You've got the intelligence to be a doctor. And they'll have to be a doctor,
Oh,
or
so
they
the
won't be
data
able to do
mining.
anything.
Okay, so the data mining also would be used for the kind of work and how they're doing at the school level and stuff like
Right.
that as well. I guess is
Right,
that
it is. And the reason I know that, Joe, is because back in 2016, I wrote an article where Ohio was classified among the tier one states under the Labor Department. And what that means is Ohio had X number of workforce initiatives that were going on in schools. So we've chucked out academics. We're not going to worry about academics anymore. We're going to data mine you to find out your attitudes, your values, and your beliefs. And if your attitudes, values, and beliefs don't match the school system, well, we have to have an intervention to have that match. And so it's going to go through data that is about your biometrics, which is how fast my eyes blink when I take a test. Are my hands sweaty? What's my heart rate? What's my breathing rate? Now, that may not sound so intrusive, but when you have a system that is more concerned with you as a commodity to be bought and sold and traded in an economy than you do a living, breathing human being with personal feelings and private information and rights that need to be protected, we've got a big problem.
No,
Yes.
you're right. You're right. So I'm beginning to understand this a little better. Okay, so this information it sounds a lot like communist China. You know, they tell you, they'll tell you what you're going to be, and that's it. Or what they do is I was reading, they take a test. They take a test, I guess, when they, 12th grade or something. And then based
Oh,
upon.
no, it's second grade in some states. Second
Oh,
grade.
states, but I mean in China, I was reading where they
okay.
take a test in 12th grade, and then, however they score is where they're going to be for the rest of their lives. If they, for instance, aren't feeling well and do lousy on that test,
Exactly.
they're going to be sweeping floors, or maybe thrown down into a coal mine for the rest of their lives. They do really well on that test. They could be, like you said, a doctor or something. But the pressure, kids would commit suicide and stuff if they did
But
lousy on that test. Now
yeah.
that's communist China, and that's coming to the United States, I guess, with all this
Oh,
data
honey,
mining.
it's
Huh?
already here. It's not coming. It's already here. And it's been in place since at least 2008, 2009. Ohio got on board with it not too long after that. In 2016, like I said, they had a tier one state through the Department of Labor, and they used what was called the State Expansion Grant. And what that allowed Ohio to do was say, oh, I can expand how much data is harvested on Johnny and Susie as they're going through school, because after all, I have all these jobs that need filling, and I have to fill those with people like Johnny and Susie. So we're going to see where they go. Now, the key component to those expansion grants was the data tracking. Then back in 2020, Ohio was among 32 states to use what's called a MFP, or a money follows the person funding. And what that does was it was opening up the door for Ohio to receive millions more in government money to increase and expand the data tracking on your students for home community-based services. And what happened not long after that? COVID hit. And what happened for Ohio as well as the rest of the nation? Those home community-based service systems went off the charts because they came into your home. How you doing? How are Johnny and Susie learning? If they're not learning the way that they need to be to match this curriculum, then we're going to have to make mom and dad get up on board on this. And so what you're seeing is you're now seeing education that has gone outside of the school and into the home with this data tracking garbage. And they're all claiming in the name of success that it's okay.
All right, Lynn and Jeannie, if you guys want to, whoever wants to tackle this, maybe Lynn, let's look at this graph here. You said this was a very important graph. Okay.
Yes.
What
Yes,
what
this
is
is.
it? What is it?
Okay, this is from the World Bank, and Jenny was talking about the data was going internationally. It's going through Ohio from the school to local to state to federal to international through the EMIS, which stands for the Education Management Info System. This is housed at the World Bank. And what you're seeing, what Joe is showing you, this is a graph that the World Bank uses for that education management system. And you'll see that the United States is all the way over on the right hand of the screen, and we're all in blue. Well, what does that mean? It means that every bit of the data tracking that's needed to comply with the World Bank is in place and in an advanced state for the United States. You should see over on the left all the goals. All the goals mean is, okay, we're going to get the legislation in line to codify data tracking. Then we're going to set up the systems. And in Ohio, it's through the Office of Procurement. And if you look at that particular office, you're going to find that under education data contracts, Joe, there are 133 different separate data contracts harvesting information on your child, whether they're in a hybrid school, whether they're in a private school, a faith-based school, a public school, and to some extent homeschooling, depending on what program they're using that goes in with this data tracking. Now, you know, Jenny
How
was
do they
talking-
track somebody at homeschool? A homeschool.
a test. The test. If you're taking the career tech advancement courses through an internship or an apprenticeship, that's one way you're tracked. If you're taking those annual assessments that most states will require their homeschooling families to use, those are nationally normed and will be taking up data points just as much. The Department of Education even data tracks homeschooling throughout the states as well. So, you know, thinking that you're exempt from data tracking is really crazy because most everybody has a smartphone. Well, that's another way that you can be data tracked in school. Now, Jenny was talking about the fact that this was going to take birth date, it's going to take name, things like that. If you look at some of the different contracts that Ohio has, for example, you're going to find different companies, different entities. There might be a graduate student doing a thesis paper, but they've got access to your child's information. You're darn right. That is a violation of their right to privacy. And the Family Education Right to Privacy Act, which is FERPA, which Jenny brought up, that was gutted through an executive order under Obama's administration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was supposed to be reinstated under the Trump administration to make it to go back to where it actually protected the amount of data, but that never happened. So the data that has been being collected is not just during this administration, it's been going on at least 3 administrations, and it continues to gain speed. I think at one point, Common Core was taking about 200 data points on children. The number is up over 1,000 data points now.
Okay, wow. Jeannie, do you have anything you want to add to that, or?
Okay, the only other thing I would say is they're also doing psychometrics on these kids. And psychometrics is the melding of psychology and sociology. Right. And so they can ask kids questions on tests, and depending upon how they're worded and who's writing the questions, they can get specific details from them about their psychological health and how they think. And I know someone who is a psychologist, and he was one of the first people in the country to be taught how to do this. And so I said to him, could you give me some examples of what these questions are? And he goes, no. He says, I can't, because he said, whoever writes the test is the one that knows what they're after. And he said, you can read the question and it looks totally innocent to you, but it's it's said it's not, because it's how you answer the question. And there was one other thing I was thinking of too. I can't remember what it was right now, but they can map your brain that way. And I talked to him not maybe a year or two ago, and he says I'm just dumbfounded about what my colleagues and the researchers are doing with these psychometrics. He said it's going to be. He says they're going to know everything that you can do, and if you have an idea that you're being tested this way, and you answer 5 or 10 questions wrong, they know that you did it on purpose, and that they make you take the test over. And everything that goes with that test is part of the data. Like, if you think you're going to outsmart them, you're not, because if you answer something wrong, that's part of the data that they collect too. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough.
Mm-hmm.
And am I allowed to mention a company's name?
I don't care. You mention anybody. Just don't mention your uncle. I don't want to hear about him. Please.
Okay, we found on YouTube Newton Analytics, and they had videos, and I can't remember the name of the guy that owns the thing. He may have sold it by now, but anyway, he said we can take a group of students and track them for 6 months or a year. He said we can tell them when they get up what time they get up in the morning. We can tell that they need to eat 2 eggs and some sausage and some toast before they go in to take their test, because if they do, they'll do better on the test. I mean, this is how
Yeah,
fine.
it's pretty
This
diabolical,
data
the
mining
whole
could-
thing. Yeah, the whole data mining sounds very diabolical in a
Oh, it
way. Here.
is.
Now, if
It
I go to
is.
this here, this is Senate Bill 29, so it does look like we're doing something here in Ohio to stop it. Steve Huffman put this one out. It looks like it went through the Senate, the Ohio Senate, then it went through the Ohio Representative House, and then it was signed by DeWine, and I think it takes effect October 24th. So
Right.
it is a bill to counter this data mining, at least to some extent, that you've been talking about. So that's great news. I didn't even know about it, to be honest with you.
Joe,
but
let
thank
me-
God
let
it
me-
went through the Ohio, the Ohio House, the Ohio Senate side,
Right.
both chambers. All right. So, are you familiar
if
with
I-
that?
if I-
Are you familiar with Senate Bill 29, and is it legit?
Okay, I looked at it today, and here's my only question for you and your people in Ohio. It clearly, the first thing out of the gate, it says, except as described in Division B of this section, a school district or technology provider shall not electronically access or monitor any of the following. And then it goes into detail. Now, here's my question. It never tells us where Division B is. So you need to find out what is in Division B, because is that where they're covering their backside? Or are they truly going to say, hey, the buck stops here, we're going to stop this? And then what happens to all these students who from 2008, 2009-ish to now, who's been data tracked to, till the cows come home? What happens to them? What happens to what recourse do they have? Because they've been harmed by this system. So this bill, while it may be stopping it now, there are other things it's not saying. So my question would be, for those who are doing their due diligence there, look at what it says, yeah, but look at what it doesn't say. Because that's where these people get by with this stuff, is what it doesn't say. And then you also have another one that is right behind Senate Bill 29, and this is Section 3319-327, monitoring of school-issued devices. Okay, I think, is that okay, that's the next section, I believe. I don't know. Anyway, I do know that this is part of what you're talking about. So that would be the only thing that I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying don't take it for face
Yeah,
value.
I'll have to look into
Yeah.
it more.
Look a little bit more. Absolutely.
More into
Now,
Senate Bill 29.
right.
So
Now, I did want folks to know that there in the state of Ohio, you have a department that we don't have here in North Carolina, or if we do, I don't know it. But anyway, it's called the Department of Procurement. And that's where your data contracts are housed for the state of Ohio. And the website is built user friendly enough so that if you just go in and type in education like I did, it'll come up with 133 different contracts. And then it'll tell you the name of the contractor and so on and so forth. Jenny, that would be a great thing for you and your team to get into. Who owns those contracts? Who has access to those contracts? Because if they're anything like what we have here in North Carolina, back when we found however many hundreds of data contracts there were, it was open-end information of anybody who worked in that company could get to it, or anyone who needed to access the information for whatever reason. And, graduate student with a thesis was even a reason that was given. So yeah, you would want to look at that. And then you also will have the Education Management Information System Guide. You need to look that up for Ohio, because it will give you the ins and outs of just how all the inner workings are going for that, so that it would match up with the World Bank image that we've already shown. And then let's see what else you would have. You also need to know that EMIS, the Education Management Information System, also dovetails into another UN and World Bank program called SABRE. And SABRE stands for Systems Approach for Better Education Outcomes Initiative. Now, anytime the government uses the word outcomes in relation to a student, it's bad news. And here's why. Because it has taken that data that Jenny is talking about, that we've been talking about, and it creates a box that the government has made for your Johnny or your Susie. And your Johnny or your Susie has to fit in that government prescribed box.
Okay, so what happens when they don't fit in? Yeah, what happens when they don't fit in that? Because I don't want to be funny about this, but let's look at the Cleveland school system. I mean, these kids can't read or write. Okay,
exactly.
So what the heck? What do they care how much data they have on some of those kids? I mean, they're basket cases.
And here's what happens. This is where they take, okay, well, Johnny and Susie didn't fit that outcome, so we now have to go in and micromanage the family so that Johnny and Susie can fit that outcome. And if they don't fit that outcome even after that, they'll reinvent a new outcome for Johnny and Susie, because they've got a place for Johnny and Susie in their system that totally defies your God-given right to freedom, the pursuit of happiness, and life and liberty.
I got you.
And another thing too is that the schools are going to be community centers, and they are going to have clinics, and they're going to have eventually, much more than that, doctor's office. They're going to be where,
It's a one-stop government mini mall is what it is. And
yes.
Those are already in place.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what the reason they give for that? The reason for that is because, we got all these low-income kids. Some of them don't get any food unless they get it from the school. So now, they have to have these federal nutrition programs, so they get that. Then they don't have any health care. So now we have to bring the hospital into the school. We have to make the school bigger, expand it out. And then we got to make sure there's nurses, and psychiatrists. We got to have psychiatrists, because a lot of these...
That's the whole beauty of their system. I think it's a horrible system. But here's the beauty for them is that... Oh, goodness. I lost my point. Oh, goodness. Oh, no. I know what it is. They say they're targeting one population of students, but then look what happens. It suddenly goes into every student, no matter where you are.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, too. they these behemoth schools, they're so huge now, and they're all encompassing, like you said, the healthcare, the food, the extra activities, on and on and on. So that's the government taking over, but it's also increasing your property taxes. We talk about that all the time on this show too.
Yep.
It's enslaving people. People can't afford their property taxes anymore. We're having a big problem with that. We've had these with inflation, with the Joe Biden inflation.
Right.
We've had property taxes that are just ballooning, okay? And people don't have the money to keep paying it. Then you lose your house. They take their house from you. But anyhow, the schools are the biggest culprit of this. It's 60 in Ohio, 65% on average of your property tax goes to the public school. The public
Whether you
school.
use that public school or not, you're still
Right.
paying for it. You absolutely are. And so by that right, you should be looking at what's going on in the schools. And when Jenny brings up the fact that she's got friends who are pointing out to her just how dangerous this stuff is, this is where we need to be getting people in the board meetings, where we need to get people going, okay, what is this? What is in this data contract? Who has access to it? How does this violate my rights or my child's rights? And what's our recourse?
All right, let me just ask a couple questions. First of all, let's say they got this information. What do they plan to do with it, Lynn or Jenny? What do they plan to do with it? What is their ultimate goal? Any idea?
Control.
Okay. Control, but how?
But they,
Where you work, where you live, what you
Right.
do. Yeah.
how
That's
much
the goal.
gas you use.
Are you a responsible citizen?
right? And
So in other words, Big Brother is going to be watching us. Big Brother.
Yes,
Yeah.
it ties in with the digital currency. Once we go to digital currency, well,
Yeah, the
you
problem
know-
with digital currency I see is that, they could put the kibosh on it anytime they want. If they don't
they
like
could
you,
take all your money.
if they don't like
with
you,
the click
then
of a
your
button.
credit card isn't going to work. So you're
No.
stuck,
Right.
Yeah, if it's
Absolutely.
all that
And
electronic
and
money.
it isn't going to be called money. It's it's not credits. It's something else. And if somebody reports you because you were rude or nasty to them, you could lose some of your
Your social credit. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
your
that
social
can
credit.
absolutely happen as long as we allow the government to keep growing and expanding, which is what their game plan is. Because then
Absolutely.
they control
Well,
our lives, and that's what we have
Right.
to stop. We have to stop
Absolutely.
that. And this election coming up, like Elon Musk said, this is it, guys. This is it. Trump, if Trump doesn't get in, we're done. All right, you get Kamala in there. I mean, that is pure communism. That is going to be pure communism. We're not going to be able to stop it. And so I'm biting my fingernails with this. And the other thing too is with all their cheating. So I don't know, but we got to fight this. We cannot allow the government to control us, and I think that's exactly what's happening. So this whole data mining stuff is all about just controlling our lives. So.
Absolutely. And Jenny said it masterfully. It is about control from a local level, state level, federal level, and a global level, because you have to be a good member state of the United Nations. And unfortunately, the United States is one of the biggest members of the United Nations. But I do have some recourse. I've been saying, find out what's going on, and you need some recourse. And that is the Civil Rights Act of 1981, Section 1983. And what is the beauty about this particular recourse is that you can take all those people who have had their personal private data immorally or unjustly taken on them, and they can go after any person who has been able to be a part of that. And how I mean this is a federal law that was created for civil action for any time your rights have been deprived or somehow muted or just taken away. And I'm going to read you just a tiny bit of it. Every person under any part of the statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage anywhere in the United States and the District of Columbia has subjected or causes to be subjected any citizen of the United States or other person within the jurisdiction a deprivation of their rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the Constitution and laws shall be liable to the party injured in an action of law. So in other words, these people who've been going in and participating in these data mining contracts, okay, they came after your personal private information. You need to hold them accountable in a court of law at a personal level. Because if you do it at a corporate level, they'll bring their corporate lawyers after you. But if you use the law as it is intended, this is a recourse for everyday people like us to have a leg up on a misuse of authority from an education system.
So what do I do then? I get a lawyer?
No, Cornell University has an entire guide, Joe, that walks you through how to use this law to your advantage. And you might need a lawyer, but you could also do this by yourself. It has no statute of limitations. It is for any misuse by any government official or representative, elected or appointed. It can be used at a state, federal, or local level.
Yeah, but one second, just so I understand.
Sure.
Are you saying that any of the students, parents, anybody could do this right now?
Yeah, absolutely they could. And
But
I
they
would
don't know
encourage
about it,
them
probably.
to.
They
Probably
know
don't
about it.
because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know this law even exists, but it is a beautiful piece of legislation that gives us a way to fight back against this behemoth system. And I can make sure that you get that. I have that particular PDF in my computer. I've used it several times on several different shows, and it is a goldmine of information.
Okay, sounds really good. Well, then there's a silver lining behind all this. Let's just let me ask you this. Maybe we'll wrap this up because I'm just like, what can we do? Is that what we do? Is that the recourse? What you had there?
Mm-hmm.
That would be
That's
the recourse.
the biggest one. Yeah, that would be the biggest one. First of all, find out who has your contracts. You know, those 133, they're not just nobody. They're up to something. And Jenny already mentioned, what was it, Newton, Jenny?
Newton Analytics. It's KNEWTON Analytics.
Yeah. Well, you're probably going to find a lot more like them. So yeah, you would need to find out.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Find out the state expansion grants because those will involve data. The money following the person system, that's going to have data. So you've got a plethora of places to look. And then you can use this particular law to go after them and say, you know, not on my watch. You deprived my right, my child's right to privacy. How dare you?
well, it's interesting. Yeah.
I personally think that the only way the education system is going to change or improve is until it's not going to, especially in your cities, until parents are engaged with their children. That these parents, you know, teach their kids at home, love them, cherish them, and you'll see a tremendous difference in their outcomes from education. And throwing money at a problem has never changed anything, ever. And the legislators don't want to hear that. They want to have a system set up. They want to have it cut and dry, and then they can forget about it because they don't have to worry about it for 5 or 10 years. They'll be gone by that time. And I don't think parents, when you look at them and talk to them about this stuff, they look like you're a freak, and they look like a deer in the headlights. They just go, what? You know, and they go talk to the superintendent or the principal or whatever, and they tell them something totally different. So guess who they listen to? They listen to those people because who am I? I'm just an ordinary, everyday person that took 2.5 years out of my life to research Common Core, and I don't know anything because I don't have a college education or I'm not an educator. But those two places, the parents with their families need to take care of them, and they need to go to school board meetings every month so they know what's going on. There's at times that they have school board meetings and there is nobody in the audience. Nobody. One school we went to, nobody had ever come to speak at their school board meetings. They had to look up the rules and regulations before we got there, so they knew what to do. And it's like, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, when school was in session, we could trust the teachers, we could trust the superintendents, the administration, and we could trust the state because we all had basically the same socioeconomic background. And we had faith and we believed in God, and that just doesn't happen anymore. So all this other stuff is being slowly brought into our schools, and how do we fight it? And I can tell you that this Common Core thing is a multi-billion, if not trillion, business. And
well, let me ask you this about that for a second, because Lynn, you refer to yourself as the Common Core Diva, and by the way, CommonCoreDiva.com is where you're at. So if somebody wants to see your website in that, CommonCoreDiva.com.
Right.
Okay, Lynn Taylor. So, just the cliff notes on that. Is that Common Core still a big issue?
Oh, honey, absolutely. I mean, look, you can't enter into a global agreement with UNESCO, thanks to Bill Gates, for a one world curriculum with one world testing and wonder why America's gone to hell in a handbasket for their education system. I mean, that is exactly what the purpose was to make it a one world curriculum. So of course you have to get rid of American education, American attitudes, values, and beliefs, and replace them with what? Globalization. And what does globalization need? It needs an economy. And who better to feed the economy than your students? So if we chuck out academics, we replace it with skill-based education, there's what feeds our economy. And Jenny was absolutely right as far as the digital currency, because we're going to be worth more to that system as a avatar than we are a living, breathing human person. And this is why I'm saying the recourse needs to be the Civil Rights Act, because we are being deprived of our rights. We're seeing our children deprived of their rights, and it has to stop.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely got to stop. But I think I believe more of a direct approach, because I don't know how many people are really going to look up that case from 1981 or get themselves.
Oh no, it's not a case; it's a law.
A law from a law.
Yeah, it's a law. It's a federal law. Mm-hmm.
The people got to step forward, like you were saying.
Yep.
Jeannie was saying that, hey, these parents don't say anything at the school board meetings, and they should be. They got to learn to speak out. Americans got to learn to speak out, take action, become activists. That's what's going to change things, because Bill Gates might have a lot of money, but if people aren't going to listen to him or be bullied by him, it ain't going to happen. All right?
True.
It ain't going to happen. And as long as we're still a free country, which, we're hanging on by a thread right now, but as long as we're still a free country, we can fight back. And people have got to start fighting back. It's just say they're not going to put up with that, put up with any of this nonsense. But I really appreciate you bringing it to my attention. I want to thank you again for coming on the show. It's always good to see you. And
it is, yes. And thank you, Jenny, for raising the alarm on this, because without you, we wouldn't even have this conversation tonight.
Well, you're welcome. I was just dumbfounded when this person contacted me. It was like 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday, and I'm like, okay, I'll keep my eyes open as long as I can so we can, have a decent conversation. But I had no idea. I had no inkling or whatever, because I haven't gone back and looked at that stuff, because I was so frustrated
right
the first time that I couldn't deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
it's understandable.
Yeah, it's good. Activists like you, Jeannie Mack, Jeannie Mac.
Yes.
And I wanted to say Lima again. I should have wrote it down, but you're not. You're in
No, that's
Columbus
okay.
Grove. What is it?
Yeah, it's Columbus Grove.
Columbus Grove, Ohio. Remember that, Lynn. Okay?
I will.
Remember
I
that.
will. I will. Still don't know where it is, but that's okay.
Well, it's kind of like on the it's on the western border of Ohio. It's like borders Indiana.
Oh, okay.
It's way over there.
All right. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again, ladies. I appreciate it. God bless you
right.
both, and appreciate
Thanks, Joe.
everything you're telling us. And have a good night. God bless.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to go talk to Joe Biden and see if he has anything to say over there.
It might fall off the bar stool.
Yeah, let's go talk to Joe Biden. Oh, thank you. You too. All right. We got to talk Joe Biden over here. Hey, Joe. How you doing? Doesn't have much to say at the moment. This is